Hey loves, good morning. I'm Brenna Paxton, your guide to astral and earthly travel and the creator of AstroAura.com. And I just woke up recently, look at myself, cozied up on the couch, journaling and writing and channeling, which I do basically every morning, at least every other day, but usually every day. And oh my gosh, I feel like I just emerged from a cocoon. I'm like still coming out of it. I have slept more than I've like ever slept in the past 3 or 4 days. And I can tell that the whole time it has been because I was doing so many things at once. I was releasing and I was becoming very aware of in a very tangible way, and then releasing old programmings that I picked up when I was really young. So they felt really, really like ingrained in my body. And when something is a belief that's that deeply held that it's like in your physical body, especially since it's been around for so long, then it's definitely necessary, like, to allow the physical space to release that. So for me, this time that really had to do with me sleeping a ton. And it was wild, man. It was wild because I woke up one morning, not yesterday, but the day before, in a panic, like early in the morning, like with such anxiety, just like, whew. It was just I just woke up that way, you know. I'm sure you get what I mean. And I just knew that I like had to go back to sleep and like sleep it out, which is not necessarily a normal thing that happens to me. This felt like very specific, but felt very clear. Like that was the thing I had to do. That was my only option. And it was crazy because I feel like the entire time that I was like sleeping for hours, I was getting all these visions of like the way it was like showing me the way I perceived things and then showing me how it's wrong. Wild. I love it. So that happened about 2 days ago, and this is after I recorded the last video where I have been integrating my younger self that I call Little Brenna with the pink beret. Little artist Brenna. And, you know, she was like 4 or 5, so that's a long time ago. That is early on in my life. That's kind of when your foundation of beliefs for how the world works gets really solidified, since, you know, when we're a little bit younger than that, up until you start going to school or something, right? Like, you kind of are operating in your own childlike way, where you really are like tapped into your truth. You're still very a part of that. And I'm not saying that we get rid of that when we go to school or whatnot, but I think it's school. It's where we learn our societal programming. We're like literally set up to like, okay, now you need to believe this thing. Some of it's helpful, some of it's not helpful at all. At all. Especially when you consider that we just learn a bunch of propaganda, especially here in the United States. Although I guess probably most places, honestly. Crazy. But yeah, so that part of myself I've been trying to reintegrate, and it's been taking a lot of work over many years. And I know that this year has been the year that I'm like finally doing that. And you kind of have to work backwards, like not always kind of hop around through time, but I found for myself throughout a long year journey. What am I trying to say? Like multiple years journey. A long journey over many years. of trying to reintegrate and heal and find these different parts of myself. I'm always like switching between the singular and the plural there, because it's like I am one self, but I'm made up of many parts of my selves. There's many selves within my one self. You get it. So I've been trying to reintegrate that little Brenna for so long, but I feel like I've had to heal everything else, like coming down before that. Like, I'm 28 years old right now. Like, I had to heal 26-year-old Brenna and 18-year-old Brenna and 23-year-old Brenna and 17-year-old Brenna and 24-year-old, kind of like hopping back and forth, but starting more recently and working my way back in time. And then I spent a lot of time the past 3 years healing like 13-year-old Brenna and 11-year-old Brenna and 15-year-old Brenna. And then working my way back to 4-year-old Brenna feels like the really big like origin of when I split off from my truth in order to protect myself, because I was learning the way that the world works, and it was not a way that felt comfortable to me. It felt very unsettling and upsetting, and very difficult in a variety of ways that for some reason I don't feel like I even need to explain right now. But so that part of me is what I've been trying to reintegrate this year, and it's like the core of my entire programming. So it makes sense to me then that like basically full moon in Gemini just recently happened, and I had this real like bodily understanding coming from little Brenna with the pink beret, where I was really feeling her emotions in my current body. And then following that is when I ended up sleeping for like 3 or 4 days straight. And, you know, at the beginning of that process, I first was thinking like, oh man, I'm being so lazy, or why am I doing this? I should be doing something else. But that's part of the programming I was removing. That's what I was releasing. So it's like the first day, all of that programming kind of came up in one sense, but in a kind of unconscious way. The second day, I was so anxious, like more anxious than I've ever been. And that's the day that I felt like I had to like sleep through the anxiety, which both worked and didn't. I mean, you know, if you're anxious, it's hard to like sleep. So I was kind of half awake, half asleep, and I felt like I was in this weird dream world where I was getting all these flashes of the stories that I've been believing throughout my life, and then having them kind of like flipped around and shown like how I was seeing it in a way that wasn't beneficial for me or my path or my truth. I'm not necessarily saying in a way that was wrong, even though you could say it was wrong, but I just mean in a way that wasn't true for me, that was wrong for me, the way I was perceiving those things. And also, again, I guess the reason I also hesitate using the word wrong is because it's always right. Like, even those beliefs, while maybe not helpful, in terms of if I was to maintain that view, that would be helpful for me continuing. But those beliefs have helped me get to where I need to be. So that's why it's always right. Right? But yeah, so just releasing all of this crazy programming, a lot around worth and creativity and how that translates to my career and who I am, and if I deserve to exist and thrive as my fully creative self, and if it's even possible for myself to thrive just by being who I am, and honing in on my own personal style of creativity or my own unique perspective of life. If that is enough to sustain sustain me, or if it isn't, like, it's like that program that I feel like I learned when I was really early on was like, how does the world work? How do you live? How do you make money as a grown-up? It's when, you know, you start in school learning, if I want to do this, then these people say that I have to do XYZ first, or that in order to be what I want, I might not be able to, and I'm going to have to try really, really hard or work really hard, and I still probably won't be able to make it happen. Lame. Ew, how lame. That's like what adults teach us. Dude, I don't want to teach anyone that. You can do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't harm other people. That's the one caveat. And people still do whatever they want, and it does harm other people. This is why I'm making these videos. We need to wake up to this stuff and be aware of it and be very critical of what impact our actions, beliefs, thoughts have on the world and on others, even the ones we're unaware of and the ones that we don't intend on being bad or negative. Those are the most important ones to take a look at. You know? Jeez. Yeah. Thanks for letting me like ramble to you here in the morning, just sharing my practice with you. Yeah, dude, it's been crazy. So then yesterday, a day after the day that I was super anxious and I like was getting all these crazy visions, it kind of happened again. I wasn't as anxious this time, but I was actually really surprised that I felt the need to like sleep all day again, or, you know, not all day, a lot of the day. Just gotta admit that. But a lot of the day sleeping, followed by the rest of the day just really resting and relaxing. And yesterday I really felt that I was getting all of these visions of a new program, of like, once it was like kind of like I had released something that then allowed me to even see how all the beliefs that I was holding were not true. And so then the next day, and it's like I released a lot of anxiety that day, and then the next day it's like I had to recover from releasing all that anxiety and having all that anxiety, because that is like hard on you, you know, like that's a little tiring. So recovering from that, but then also getting this entire new program of like, okay, so now that you see how that stuff was not serving you, like here's a new way to look at everything. And that was beautiful. I'm really grateful for all of this. Yeah, I'm still comprehending everything that I learned, and that I'm integrating right now. So I'll keep you posted as I learn about that. But I can definitely tell that something's very different today. Also, like the moon was in Cancer the past few days, and my moon is in Cancer, my like natal moon, and I'm a very watery, emotional person, intuitive, and I do feel that like every time the moon is in a water sign, I kind of just have to rest and like reset. Wow, I look crazy. So then today, like the moon is in Leo and a fire sign, right? And it definitely feels like, I just went through something and I'm ready to now like step into action and act on it and do the next thing. And truly all of this programming that I've been releasing and reprogramming has been about, or has been what has been preventing me from acting, if that makes sense. Like I've been really sitting on a lot of ideas for years and beating myself up about it, feeling guilty about it. That's like, even that's a part of the programming I'm releasing and changing right now. Transforming how I understand the journey, and that sometimes you do need to kind of be patient and let yourself wait until it feels right. But simultaneously, like, it's never gonna feel completely right because we have to push ourselves. So there's like a really fine balance there, because it's like you want to honor where you're at and not push yourself too much, but you don't want to be stagnant and not push yourself at all. That's really hard to figure out. Especially when it gets down to these like nitty gritty beliefs that I've held for my entire life, trying to identify where you're holding yourself back in a negative way and where you need to push yourself is sometimes almost impossible. And you like need another outside perspective, because we are so built from the beliefs that we're trying to remove. Like, you almost can't even like see them. It's like a glass of water. We are like, it's like we're the glass. So every time you look through it, like, you can't actually tell what's the water. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, if your water are all of, it's like who you are, and you're trying to figure out who you are. But in order to figure that out, you have to look through the glass of like what contains who you are. And that's like the beliefs that you picked up when you were super, super young. And so it's like, wait, where does the glass end and the water begin? Like, it's like all the same. Like, even though it's not all the same. But sometimes you need someone else to like pick the glass up and like pour it out for you and be like, yo, like, this is the glass, this is you over here, this is the water. I don't know if that analogy makes sense, but sometimes we just really need, you know, another person, especially since we're all connected. It's really just an extension of ourselves. Another person to be the catalyst to help us like see something from a new perspective that we weren't able to see on our own. I really feel that the deeper that stuff gets, the more you need other people or someone else to help you do that. And sometimes it should be a professional therapist. Often it should be. And sometimes it should be someone who works with energy, who can clear all your chakras out and help you go retrieve pieces of your soul that have been hiding, like me. Let me know if you need help with that. But yeah, so that's kind of what's been going on the past few days. I'm now like coming out of my cocoon. Oh, feeling so rested. So rested, like profoundly rested. It's actually kind of crazy. I don't know if I've felt this rested in a long time. So I'm really excited to get to work. But really, I think I mean get to play. Like, I think that's something that has switched in the past 3 days while I was sleeping, was my understanding of how it's just time for me to trust myself and to play and love life instead of working real hard all the time. So we'll see what happens next. Thanks for joining me as I share my daily practice with you, my process of transformation, constantly seeking greater embodiment, greater awareness, deeper alignment, all of these beautiful things, right? So I love you, friend, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon.